Okay, I may have overlooked some of the details during the session when we wanted to look more carefully into the data. So let's examine this in a little bit more detail so that we can understand the example. So the function that we're calling is list, and then we're giving it the channel ID as a parameter. Okay. So one of the parameters that must be sent is the channel ID. Other parameters that may be optional are part, category ID, for handle, and other thing for username, and for other, like there are other parameters that can be sent. The least one that should be sent is the channel ID. Okay. So the example here, when we click here or when we click on, okay, so let's follow that. So if we click here to see an example of retrieving, calling a function list and given it a channel ID, it should retrieve channel data for the Google developers YouTube channel. Okay, so they provided the ID of the Google developer YouTube channel as an example so that we can use it to retrieve the data from there and look into it. Okay, so that is using the ID request parameter to identify the channel by its YouTube channel ID. Okay, so if we look more carefully into the example here, so if we go to Python, the actual function that will be sent is here. Okay, so when you say YouTube is the server that would be created here, or the service that would be creating here, and then channels as a function, and then what returns from it to the object that returns from this function, we call the list function on it. And then list function, we provide it with parameters to determine what is it that we want to look into from the information available for this channel. Okay, we need to specify a channel ID. This is the channel ID for the YouTube developer channel or Google developer channel. And optionally, we can provide parts. So we asked for the snippet, content details, and statistics. Okay, so this is the function call. The expected output is explained here. So it would come as a JSON file or a JSON data format, which looks pretty much like the dictionary. Okay, so we would have an item called kind, and then other items, and the one that we really care about is the item that is called items. All right, and that is that contains the information that we actually asked about, which are the snippet, the content details, and the statistics. Okay, so that comes as in a JSON format, and because the JSON format is very close to how the dictionary look like, it will the library that we have, I mean the client library that we have, will turn it automatically into a dictionary, and then we can work from there. Okay, now let's see how does that look like in the code. Okay, so the data that we have here that we printed on the terminal is not very readable. Let's have a look at the data here so that we can see it in a formatted way so that we can better understand it. So you can see here there is a key that's called kind, and then there are some metadata about the general response coming. Okay, and then eventually when we go to the items part, we will have a list of dictionaries. Okay, so this is the first dictionary in the list, and it has some its own kind and e-tag. And here is the ID of the channel that we sent. And then the snippet is the one of the parts that we asked for. So the snippet is just a general information about the channel, including the title, the description, the custom URL, or the published ad, and thumbnails. Okay, so thumbnails themselves, they have their own internal information. Okay, and then link to the thumbnail. Now, eventually we get to the statistics part that we might be interested in, since we are interested in data analysis or creating data aggregation. Okay, so statistics is usually something of interest. So what kind of statistics that we can have about a channel here? We can have the view count, the subscriber count, and video count. Okay, so let's say, for example, we want to look for, or we want to compare two channels to see which one is more popular. So we can collect the data from one channel and collect the data from the other channel, compare the view count, or compare the subscriber count. Okay, so let's say we want to access this item in particular. How can we do that? Now let's go to the code and try to see, or try to figure out from the response that comes, because when we try to collect to different data sources, we don't necessarily know all the details of how the response is organized. So it's good that we can navigate and figure out how to access the information we need based on the response that we receive. So the response that we receive is right here, and we know that the statistics is somewhere inside that response. So let's see how can we access it. Okay, so response variable is the first access point, and it is automatically turned into a dictionary. So we can use the watch here to try to experiment to see whether we can access the statistics that we're looking for directly, and then we can use the code that we discovered in order to continue working on our script. So first thing we need to access is the response itself, and then inside the response there are all this information. What we really care about is the items. I kind of confused Python with JavaScript a little bit during the session. So the items here is one of the items of the dictionary. It's called items, but it is one of the items in the dictionary. So how do we access the items in the dictionary, or the values in the dictionary, using the key? So the key itself is items. We should access it using the square bracket operator, and then we put the key in here. Okay, now if I say dot, if I say dot items like this was my mistake. So if I say dot items like that, that would access the view, the items view, like the dictionary view object that we talked about when we talked about dictionaries. But I want to access the item that has the key items. So I should use the square brackets like this, and then I put the items, the name of the key, like this is the key of the item I want. All right. Now let's see what this is gonna give us. It will give us, now, because we're looking for a channel with an ID, so that definitely is one channel, okay? Because we sent a very specific ID, so that's one channel. If we give more generic criteria and multiple channels to return, then this would have multiple items in this list, but we only have one item. But it's still a list. We want to access that item, so this only item is accessible through index 0. All right, so that would give us direct access to the dictionary that contains information about the channel. So we can see here there is the ID, and then there is the snippet, And then eventually there are content details. I added that content details in the code. And then there is the statistics. All right, so statistics is what we're looking for. So we can expand it a little bit. So you see statistics is one of the items in that dictionary. Okay, so when we say responses, items of 0, that itself is a dictionary. So now we want to access the statistics out of it. So we want to access the value of the key statistics. Okay, now let's see what is this going to give us. So that gives us another dictionary that has 1, 2, 3, 4 items. Now let's say I'm interested in the view count. So this is the key in this dictionary is view count. So let's see. I need to add that here, view count. Sorry, so it's a string. And let's see if this works. Yeah, so this is what we need. And now we can copy that and stop here. So we can say we don't want to print the entire response. We only want to print the view count of the channel to do something else with it, or compare it to the view count of another channel, or whatever we are trying to do in our script. We can do that. So now we are about to print our view count. There you go. All right, now let's have a look at something else. See why we are working. We saw something like content detail. So let's see what's in that. So here, before we go to statistics, so at this level, okay, so this point we are the breakpoint was right before we receive the response. So now the response would have value, and now we can see that what items that we have access here. Now let's have a look at what is available in the content details. So I will add that all the value of the content details here. Now let's see what's in there. There are so there is a related playlist. That's what the content, like what is available in the content details. And then if we expand it, you will see that there are some likes, but it's not recorded, it's empty. Some uploads, okay. Now that nothing of that interest to me at this moment, but I can see what's in there. So I can use this watch feature of the debug mode to experiment with the data that we have to see what's in there, what's of interest to me, and see how can I access it, and I can use that result of this experimentation in my script. Okay, so I hope that this is clear.